wrong. Who knows? I don't know. And I actually said to you, I don't know the men by their performance. Only somebody that's in that building would know it. But I know them publicly, and as in the meeting we had where they had interviews, that's how I know them. By out in the street and by the interview, I don't know their record, their performance, everything that they've done. I said that.
Yeah, I don't think there was any dispute that these three guys that were interviewed, that they're all good guys.
Yep. Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
And
I don't have a problem with either three guys. The truth is the truth. I don't have a problem with any of them. Never did. I have no reason to have prejudice at all because they're all good people.
And I'm certainly not prejudiced.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Was based on what I've seen.
right, and I certainly went with the recommendation, and I remember Frank saying at the end, well, I'll go along with the recommendation. I remember him saying that. And if that's not a vote, maybe that's not a vote, but that's what I.
This wasn't an easy thing for me either to make that decision, but I made it based totally on what I've seen. And the interest that my choice has always had in the police department and the township.
And there's not a problem with, it was a question that was asked, which was here, actually we were done with questions when it was asked. It was a question that was asked. And I gave an, first I asked, but I gave an honest answer.
I'm sorry if there was some confusion on my part somehow.
I do have a question. How long are you going to stay working, Rick?
I really don't know yet.
Okay.
Some of it's going to be, the last thing I wanted to do was just say, in 2 months I'm going to be out of here, and not, there's, whoever becomes chief here is going to have their own style of being a chief. But there's a lot of administrative things that need to be done, and a guy would be lost. I can't teach him to be a chief, but I want to, when I leave here, I have that dedication that whoever's going to take my place when I leave is able to do those administrative things without a lot of being lost.
Well, I guess what part of my question is when you leave, does that automatically mean that Kent is chief, or does that mean that Phil at that point could still become chief?
That's going to be up to the supervisors.
Right, that would be a separate appointment. It's not a. It's what he would do right now if something happened to Rick, and they needed a chief to fill the slot, the assistant chief obviously would take over until.
But if he retires and we know there's time coming, I mean, would there be, another? I mean, what kind of a board then would do that? Are we looking at the same type of board?
Are we
looking at like a 5-person panel, like Mr. Hess was talking?
Yeah, well, it would be a board of supervisors would then determine if they're hiring a new chief and appointing the chief at that time.
Jim, I got to ask a question.
Yes, sir.
Rick, do you have the power of a vote for the assistant chief? I mean, are you permitted to do that?
In the past, the supervisors have always taken my input, whether it's hiring a new guy.
Okay, that's what I thought. Now, if Jane voted for Mr. Werkheiser and Frank didn't, and Harold abstained, that's one vote. Is it not, Tim? Do you elect
a tie? It's a tie vote. Then, if it came out that way, the way that actually works is that Harold, if he then states in writing this conflict on the record to advise what it is, on a 3-member board, Pennsylvania has come up and said, so the townships aren't frozen to be able to take action, that they will allow a supervisor, even with a conflict, to vote if necessary to break the tie, so the township can make a decision. Otherwise, it could be deadlocked forever. And so that's, if it came down that there was a deadlock, then Harold would have the opportunity then to vote and break the tie.
Yeah, but Frank agreed at the end. He might not have voted, but he agreed at the end.
I said
you agree at the end?
I said that.
we both agreed with Rick's recommendation. Yes.
Debbie McCarthy, Tannersville. It sounds to me like Mr. Hess shared his opinion, his judgment on the candidate recommended. You expressed your request for the candidate recommended. It was even, yes and a no. However, in the end, he agreed to disagree out of respect. although that wasn't his initial vote, at the end, he said, I value your judgment. That's it. So
But it's
he didn't vote. I
It's
understand
the
he
same
didn't
thing as
vote.
the votes here. I
Exactly.
voted against the ambulance corps. Two
Exactly.
people voted for the ambulance corps. I gotta sit here and say, all right, we're one entity. 3 people are create an entity. It's 2 to 1.
And that's why we have an odd number for
Yes,
exactly
yes.
this since the beginning of time.
Yes, that's
Believe me,
it.
it was not an easy decision on anyone's part. You know, we don't work with these people, and I don't see them every day either, but I mean, they're all good people. Everyone is. Very, very good people. Yes.
I guess this might be a question for Mr. McManus. Tim, how do we expand this board of supervisors to 5 like a lot of other townships do?
I'm sorry, what?
How do we expand this to 5 members instead of 3 like a
That
lot of
actually
other
has to
townships
get
does?
done by I haven't gone through one of those personally. I believe it's a voter referendum. And there's a process set forth in the ordinance.
And who selects that?
People have to
Would that be
request
brought up by you, I guess, the board? Or?
The board actually, yeah, I think a petition comes in and the board then decides to put it on the ballot. I'm just kind of talking generalities here because somebody else in my office had one for another township, but I haven't had one directly to know that. I'd have to look at that further to know the real answer to that question.
All right, I'll ask you at the next meeting. Thanks, Tim.
Any other? Yes.
Mike Savage from Bartonville. I'm just wondering, this township supervisor, what actually is he gonna do? Or she?
Oh, well, we're,
You need a manager.
the manager, yeah, we're just advertising for an ordinance. We will have, go ahead.
I'd say traditionally what the manager does, in most townships around here now, the supervisors have been filling all the slots, taking up all the administrative responsibilities, handling all the employment issues, doing all the day-to-day operations, and so you're running all the business. And the township manager is brought in to handle all the day-to-day functioning of the township, so the supervisors can basically act strictly as kind of like a board of directors for the corporation. They make the policy calls and the major decisions for the township. The township manager devotes exclusively their time to the day-to-day operations of the township.
What does that
And it
entail?
usually comes up when townships reach a certain point that the workload becomes enough that it makes sense to have one person in there dedicated full-time to get it all done. And that's, whether they're at that point in their minds or not, that's...
Well, aren't they all full-time now?
Pardon me?
Aren't they all full-time now?
Yeah. Well, the supervisor, I mean, in theory, all supervisors are full-time, whether they're an employee of the township or not. They're all of them are employees of the township right now.
Mm-hmm.
But the township manager, everybody wouldn't stay an employee, at least to the extent they're an employee. Right now, if the township manager come in, because that township manager would be picking up some, if not most of those duties. Things like Harold's position, he really wouldn't, roadmaster and things. It's more things like what Jane does that the township manager would really be handling.
So if we hire a township manager, then Jane's not gonna have her job. Is that what you're saying?
I would not have the job that I have, no, probably not.
She'd still, I mean,
I could
that
still
person
do
may still be
things,
the secretary or treasurer to do,
Yeah.
have the ultimate authority or responsibility of the law, but the day-to-day functions would usually be done by the township
So
manager.
then her salary would be cut.
Yes.
They can,
Absolutely.
the township supervisors can delegate as much or as little in terms of duties that they want to the township manager, but I think most townships that get them in there usually give them, pretty broad, just like you'd have like a general manager for a manufacturing company or something like that. They handle all boots on the ground stuff all day.
So we're really not adding another salary, we're just
Yes.
changing, dispersing.
Yes, sir.
Chad Kilby, Tanner's office. How are the duties currently allocated amongst the supervisors? Are the duties currently equal amongst all the supervisors?
Well, they're basically the same way they've been for a long time.
Which is, I mean, they do different things.
Well, we do different things, I'm not quite sure what you're asking. Like, I am the secretary treasurer, Harold's the roadmaster, okay, and Frank is the assistant secretary treasurer. Yes.
I guess the big question would be, how do you justify paying $100,000 out of tax money? For what? What are we getting?
Well, it's not we're not contemplating 100,000.
No, I'm just gonna.
Yeah, the benefits are easily 100.
By the time you pay benefits and
Right.
80,000 a year, you're gonna pay $100,000
Well,
a year.
yes, but I will not be collecting the same salary that I collect now, so we're putting that onto the township manager's office, so she can help out with that thing.
Can I ask them? Is there anybody else that has any questions for me that I might be able to
Oh,
answer?
I'm sorry.
I just have one question.
Forgot you
I'd
were
just like to
standing
know
there.
how long Hank Werkheiser has been an officer for law?
I think around 11 years.
And how long has Phil Riley?
Phil came here in the 80s, prior to 85. I'm not sure.
That would make
So
it
more than 20.
20 years?
Wow.
Okay.
20 years.
In your opinion, Chief, in your opinion only, you state that you believe that one person was better to do the job as assistant chief than the other.
Yes, sir.
Can you elaborate on that just a little bit? You know, being former law enforcement, I know that 27 years of experience on the road is a lot of years, you know? And I know that 11 years is a lot, but it's nowhere near what you get that last 10.
Well, I think the best thing I can tell you is just my opinion. If I had to go into detail, I think I'd be exposing some things that I shouldn't even be talking about that would involve personnel and some issues like that. So it's just my opinion based on the performance that I saw.
It's not arrest records, it's not, you know, how he performed as far as the law went. It was opinion-based.
Opinion based on being a supervisor. You know, all three of the guys that were interviewed were sergeants. They have shifts that they command. Other things that went on over the years. You know.
I'm sure there's things you can't talk about. I get
Yes,
that.
sir.
I get that. I totally
And
get
it's
that.
like I said, all three of those guys are good guys. It's just that there was a number of things that Kent stood out in being a supervisor to take charge of the department.
Good, he's not taking charge, he's the assistant chief.
That's true, but he's
And
gonna
then,
have.
and then
he's
the
gonna-
position to chief is not a promotion, it's a totally separate vote, is that correct?
Right, but he's gonna have some duties that's gonna be above and beyond the sergeant's duties,
Well, absolutely.
but less than mine. So, there's gonna be some things that he's responsible for that's beyond, a sergeant's, duties of command of a ship.
Oh, I totally understand chain of command, believe me. Thank you.
What will happen to his old position? Is there a new sergeant coming in, or?
Well, we're in the process of trying to figure out how we're gonna reorganize this thing with, either a promotion to a sergeant. Right now, Kent's filling in that position until we get going along. Certainly, you know, dollars is a big issue. Unless we reorganize the schedule somehow, we'd be looking to have to hire another guy to fill that slot somewhere along the line if we take Kent completely out of patrol. So his duties will share patrol and the assistant chief's position with the other duties that he gets. Yes, sir.
Chief,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
this may be personal, you may not want to answer it, but why are you leaving?
I've been here 37 years.
That's a good answer.
You do a hell of a job, why do you want to leave?
Believe me, it's going to break my heart when I'm not here. I mean, my whole life has been here, as most of you know. I've been here 37 years. And